Welcome to the Genius Way Show with your host, Ben Hummel. The aim of this show is to provide education, encouragement, and insights for people who are on their own personal development journeys. As a psychotherapist, teacher, author, and creator of the Genius Way process, Ben will focus on identifying common challenges to living a purposeful life, and will share valuable psychological and spiritual tools to help you make healthy and empowering life changes. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hey friends, welcome to the Genius Way Show. This is the show where we talk about developing life skills that help us to lead a more fulfilling life. And I got a real good one for you tonight. It is the life skill of learning how to find and connect to your pre-wounded self. And so let me explain what I mean by that. So each of us is born not wounded, but whole. We're born basically as a seed of potential. That's where we are in touch with our genius, our bag of goodies that we get born with, that are our talents and skills and our callings and the things that we're good at, the gifts that we came to bring the rest of the world. Every one of us is born with that. And along the way, different things happen, inevitably, hopefully not in a masochistic way, but kind of on purpose to help us develop and grow. But the woundings that happen, the different difficulties and challenges and even traumas that happen are there to deepen us and change us in certain ways, but not to the extent of losing connection with the original version of ourselves, which is, that cluster of predispositions that we're born with, right? And so the pre-wounded self is just that. And before we have any of our woundings, there's a whole deep well of qualities that we bring with us, and again, this is not about any certain religion or belief system or something. This is the basic idea of the philosophy of the Genius Way, where each person has a set of gifts to give, and the effort as we get older is to find our way back to them and start expressing them for a sense of self realization, life fulfillment, and purpose and meaning. Okay, so the pre-wounded self is always there, and meanwhile we get kind of lost by the woundings that we have. And so a lot of people talk about woundings and the idea that we're strongest wherever we've been wounded. The scar, the skin on the scar that was cut grows over and it's even stronger than before. The bones are stronger where they're healed, blah blah blah, right? And that's all good. We all know those things. But there's something that we don't really realize, is that as our woundings take us from this way to that way, there's a trajectory that we were originally on when we were born for our own individual potential and our own kind of gifts that we're here to give. There's a trajectory that the woundings move us away from. And so it is that moving off of our path, our original path, that becomes troublesome. And after a while, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but I certainly have, we get kind of lost. We get kind of sidetracked, and our goal becomes about how to heal our wounds. Okay? And that's, again, it's good work. That's what I do as a therapist, but there's more than just healing wounds. And that more is all about finding that pre-wounded self, the self that we are born with, that doesn't go through all the woundings and the side streets and the detours. There's like a witness self that never goes anywhere. It's holding all of our gifts, all of our talents, all of our skills, our blueprint of who we're meant to be and to grow into in this lifetime. It's kind of just there, and we have to deliberately reconnect with that and pull it forward and live it forward, so to speak. It's like, you know how there's childhood development, you know, all these different stages of personal development that we go through and learning these different skills on how to, you know, object permanence and, you know, autonomy, learning how to create boundaries and so forth. Well, there's another life skill that isn't taught and it's not as obvious. Only in like a sense of a mystery school do you get this teaching where I already have a self. And the self that I am originally doesn't get wounded, doesn't get lost. And I need to learn to connect back to that self and live forward in it, okay, with all of those qualities that I brought with me. Okay, so the skill today, the life skill today we're going to talk about more and more and more is reconnecting with the pre-wounded self that you were. The pre-wounded self that's still there, that's acting as a witness to all these changes and is keeping track of your bag of goodies that you brought with you, your skills, your talents, your gifts. Okay? So, like I said before, healing wounds is great. It's important. It's, you know, it's like necessary work, but connecting with the pre-wounded self allows you to do something different. And what that allows you to do is to grow the seed of your potential. So every one of us is born as this little seed of what we are eventually going to be growing into. And we don't usually have anybody to help us nurture that seed or tell us that it's important or let us know that it's there. You know, that's what my effort is for with this message, with the Genius Way. We have this seed of potential in us as something that is, again, self-fulfilled, that is realized, that is, you know, kind of flowering into full potential. And unless we deliberately connect to that seed, it doesn't get to grow. Or maybe it grows a little bit, but not to the fullest extent of what you're wanting it to grow into. Okay? So connecting to the pre-wounded self is about recognizing, wait a minute, you know, I've been chasing the healing of my wounds this whole time. This person left me. I had a health issue. Someone died in my life, had this big loss. And all of these things kind of, you know, again, they deepen us. They have their purpose, but they also kind of sidetrack us into thinking, oh, my life is about healing these wounds. And at one point, wounds can only be healed by stepping into our original selves and living as that. Okay, so before anything happened to you, you were already something. You were already a potential of what you can grow into. And that potential has all the DNA of what the fuller expression of that thing is. Okay? And so getting in touch with the pre-wounded self is simply going to that place where you have never been wounded. Right? Again, the witness, the one that is watching all the woundings happen and all the sidetracking things, going back and getting in touch with that and kind of leaning on that and pulling that life forward. So a little later, I'm going to walk us through a guided visualization of how to get in touch with the pre-wounded self. But until then, I want you to watch this little video for a further explanation of this. And on the other side, we're going to come back and dig into this idea of the pre-wounded self a little bit more.
Ever pondered on the question, who am I really? Is there a singular I, or are we made up of numerous selves, each with their unique characteristics and roles? Welcome to the fascinating world of parts theory in psychology, a realm that explores the concept of self and identity in a rather unconventional manner. To understand parts theory, imagine yourself as a grand theater. Within this theater, there are numerous actors, each playing a unique role. These actors represent different parts of your personality: the perfectionist, the critic, the nurturer, the adventurer, the peacemaker, and many more. Each part has its own viewpoint, feelings, memories, and goals, contributing to the all-encompassing performance that is your life. But who's in charge of this lively troupe of actors? Who ensures that the performance runs smoothly? Enter the manager, the part of you that maintains order and control. The manager coordinates all the other parts, ensuring that each actor plays their role at the right time, in the right way. It's the manager who makes sure the critic doesn't steal the show, or the nurturer doesn't always stay in the shadows. However, the most intriguing character in this theater is the witness. The witness is a silent observer, watching the performance from the wings, never participating but always present. The witness is the part of you that remains unchanged, regardless of the various life-changing experiences you go through. It's the part of you that remembers the original plan for your life, keeping you connected to your sense of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. So, what have we explored today? We delved into the concept of parts theory in psychology, where we looked at the idea that our identity is not singular, but made up of numerous parts, each with their unique characteristics and roles. We discussed the role of the manager, the part of you that maintains order and control among all the other parts. And we contemplated the witness, the part of you that observes your life from the wings, remaining unchanged by the experiences you go through. In a world that constantly pushes us to define ourselves in specific, often limiting ways, parts theory offers a refreshing perspective, encouraging us to embrace the complexity and diversity within ourselves. So the next time you find yourself pondering the question, who am I really? Remember, you are a grand theater filled with a multitude of characters, orchestrated by a diligent manager and observed by a silent witness.
So there's a quote that's attributed to Carl Jung that says, "I am not what happened to me, I'm who I choose to become." And it's a beautiful quote, but it's not Carl Jung. It's somebody. Who knows who it is, but it's definitely not him. And so the reason that's a beautiful quote is because it talks directly about the parts that are created by the things that have happened to us, all those parts that were just mentioned in that video. And it also talks about, what do I do with all that? Who do I choose to become? And so when we choose to kind of go back to that original state of self and develop it, we are really on the track to, a sense of awakening to what we already are. A sense of awakening to that self that we brought with us. It's the big S self. And so we're not just a collection of these different parts. We are united by that pre-wounded self, that self that it kind of just came with us when we were born. Okay? So that is the track to go on when you're trying to become fulfilled, when you're trying to live a life of meaning and purpose. And when you're trying to do any kind of personal development work, that's the place to come from, is that pre-wounded, non-divided, it's not really even a part. It's a basic state of selfness that is here to be developed and kind of pulled along into life. So, when we start out, we have these different threads of personal development, and you can see that in your life where you're certainly developed in a certain way, but very stunted in this other way. And that's normal. We all kind of live our lives like that. But pulling on the thread of this thing, the pre-wounded self, means as I'm going through my life, as I'm going through my day, I'm referring to this part of me, or I'm referring to this aspect of me that is not based on my wounding. So I'm making decisions based on a healthy sense of self. And as I do that more and more and more, the things that I do are going to be based on a very, very solid platform of kind of existential identity. Okay? Hope that's not too weird or lofty, but I'm going to give you an example of that. So, for instance, if, let's say, one of the things that I used to deal with, I used to be, from one of my woundings, I felt really bad about being left out of something, let's just say, okay? And so if everybody was having dinner, at a restaurant and everybody kind of crowded into the booth and didn't leave me a spot, I would have a real hard time with that and feel really, really sad and depressed and dejected and hurt and so forth because of one of my woundings. However, if I remember my pre-wounded self, before whatever experience I had of being left out happened, I would just simply be creative. Everybody's in the booth. There's 3 people on that side, 3 people on that side, and there's 7 of us. I'll grab a chair and I'll go right on the end. I won't leave myself out because I'm healthy and I am okay. That's not coming from a wounded place. That's coming from an integrated, whole kind of, awakened spot. So you don't need to develop to get there. It's already there. It just has to be lived through and lived as. And so what is it for you? What are you aware of that has been a wounding for you and that you kind of act through that wounding? Because, there's one way to live as a wounded self that kind of keeps making the same detour every time there's a trigger. And then there's finally, wait a minute, I don't want to be doing that anymore. I want to change that. And so instead of changing it just by like saying, counting to 10, there's a way to connect to a part of you that isn't wounded and live from there. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take a short commercial break, and then I'm going to come back with a guided visualization that'll help you do just that. It'll give you this technique on how to come from the pre-wounded self, how to be aware of it, how to access it, and how to make choices and life choices from there. So I will see you on the other side, and we'll get more into this topic.
Ben Hummel's writing comes from a deep well of experience, practice, and wisdom. The Genius Way teaches you the life skills you need to find your own unique genius. Summoning Genius helps readers to turn a midlife crisis into an opportunity for personal growth. You can find Ben's books on thegeniusway.com, Amazon, and most online booksellers.
Allow yourself to feel the safety and security of the room you're sitting in now. And there's a safe and supportive container established for you to have a rich and rewarding inner experience related to your pre-wounded self. Feel your chair supporting your body, the floor of the building supporting your chair, and the earth supporting the building that you're in. This is the perfect place to be, and everything is set up to support and enhance your personal experience. Allow yourself to imagine that from the time you were born, you were guided and encouraged to simply be your authentic genius self. Picture your parents, guardians, siblings, and other family members living in the recognition of your special talents and qualities, and creating a space for you to express and manifest them in your life. What kind of things do you do in your daily life? What are the creative expressions you explore as you're growing up? And how does it feel to have everything you're curious about wanting to express and explore be supported and cherished by the people around you? As a result of this acceptance, love, and support, you can see a specific admirable quality developing in you. What is this quality? How does this quality affect the way you live your daily life? See some examples of how your overall life experience is affected by this quality. Take a few moments to own this specific, admirable quality as the best part of yourself, and then set an intention to keep it as you move about your world. And now you suddenly remember that you are actually doing a guided exercise about your pre-wounded self, and that what you were experiencing may not have ever happened in your actual life history. How does this realization affect the way you were seeing your life just moments ago? What, if anything, is different about the way you see your life experience then and now? What has become of this admirable quality? Can you locate this quality somewhere in your present life experience? Is it an active or dormant quality in you? If it's active, imagine one way in which it can become more active. If it's dormant, imagine one way in which you can activate it. Know that this quality is your genius gift from birth, regardless of whether you've always been aware of it or if you just suddenly realized this truth just now. And now, with this experience solidly rooted in your present life, when you're ready, allow yourself to slowly bring your awareness back to your physical body, sitting in your chair in this room, and slowly open your eyes and be present.
So hopefully that made some sense to you and you were able to get in touch with something that was important for you to learn how to connect to that pre-wounded self. So another offshoot from this idea is the notion that there is something deeper than our psychology as to what we are. We are more than our psychology. So that's one thing that I always remember when I work with people as a therapist or as a coach, is that the person that I'm working with is not only their psychology. There's something else that predates their psychology, predates, you know, the psychological framework that they live in. So think about it. When we get these woundings, when we get these detours along the way, these events that happen that take us on different trajectories, these woundings, they are happening to our psychology. Think about it. Whatever happens in terms of like an event, it makes us kind of change who we think we are as a way of dealing with it. You know, loss, grief, trauma, any kind of event that happens that falls into those categories makes us change our sense of self on a psychological level. And so if we're not our psychology, you know, rather our psychology is kind of like a filter that we kind of live through. But if we're not our psychology and there's something that our psychology is resting on, what is that thing? You know? So we can say, go all the way back and say, okay, I'm an eternal being, or whatever, you know, whatever you want to call it. There's something deeper. But for lack of, you know, getting too spiritual about it or too woo-woo about it, let's just go a little further back. Let's go to the beginning of this life, where when you were born, you really didn't have psychology. You didn't have an identity based on your psychology. So were you anyone then? That's a great question. Who were you then? What were you made of? What comprised you? You know? And so at that moment, the Genius Way philosophy holds that at that moment of our birth, and until we have all these experiences that kind of develop our psychological identity, we already have an identity. And that identity at that point is really, really closely connected to our genius, our collection of creative expressions that are in our backpack for this lifetime, in our supply chest for this lifetime. So it's a package of life skills and leanings and callings and talents and gifts that are our potential. And so when I say we're not our psychology and that we have an identity that precedes our psychology, that's what I'm talking about. And as we grow and develop, we get to this point where we realize we have that level of identity, an identity that we brought with us, not as a past life, but just as this life, the blueprint for this very life that we brought with us. It's kind of crappy to ignore it. It's kind of irresponsible to not know what it is. And if you can get that hankering to know yourself on that deep level, beneath your psychology, beneath the accidents that happen to you, and how you kind of psychologically manage to kind of deal with those accidents, getting beneath that and getting in touch with that witness self that is, you know, that precedes the psychology, and acting from there. Think about that. If you're not acting from the wounding, if you're not acting from the things you had to do to make up for the wounds and heal the wounds, if you're making your decisions in your life based on something deeper than that, think about how different your life would be. Think about if you get to know this original self for this lifetime more and more and more. What do I have to offer to the world? How do I do this? How do I see this? How do I approach this? If you get to connect to that part and act from there and decide from there and choose from there, your life is going to be much, much different. And you will see that there is a reason for you to be here. There's a purpose to step into. There is a form to embody, right? And so that's why this is all here. That's why the Genius Way is, in my opinion, a very, very important step at this point in people's lives, where I teach the life skills that are needed to get in touch with that area of identity that has nothing to do with woundings and nothing to do with really with psychology. So it's an interesting topic, but the more you look at it, the more you see I am more than my psychology. Okay, we're going to take another short commercial break. And when we come back, I will send you off with a bit of inspiration for your week until we meet again. And I'll see you on the other side.
Hi, I'm Julianne Meyer, the host of Own Your Wellness, and you can watch my show on Mondays and Thursdays from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific on Achieve TV right here on E360 TV. Remember, there's more to health and wellness than broccoli and burpees.
When we realize that we are more than what has happened to us, our journey to our original identity begins. Long before we were wounded by our experiences and made a career of healing our wounds, we were born with an intact identity that I call the pre-wounded self. This self is the holder of our expressive blueprint and our potential for this lifetime. And by paying attention and focusing on that level of our identity, we can live, choose, and take action from there. With an ongoing awareness of the self that has never been wounded, our lives can be lived by fulfilling our potential instead of only healing our psychological wounds. And that's our show for today. I want to thank you guys for being here. I enjoyed hanging out with you. I want you to remember this week, one thing to remember, I am deeper than my psychology. What is that thing that's deeper and more permanent than my psychology? Okay? Until then, I invite you to stay curious, be kind to yourself, and remember that your genius has something to say.
Thanks for watching The Genius Way Show with Ben Hummel. Make sure to visit thegeniusway.com for the resources you need to help you on your personal life journey. You can contact Ben at ben@thegeniusway.com. And you can follow The Genius Way with Ben Hummel on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks for streaming The Genius Way Show with Ben Hummel.